Let me get this out of the way. China Warrior is the most offensive game I've ever played due to this man. It's China Warrior in blackface. F*** that guy. This game sucks and deserves to burn. Burn, I tell you, burn! Okay, that wasn't exactly a rousy, classy start. Let's try that again. China Warrior. Perhaps one of the name titles on the TurboGrafx-16 video game system. You've probably seen that commercial comparing this game to perennial Kung Fu classic on the Nintendo Entertainment System entitled Kung Fu. Now, if I may be allowed a sad digression and a bit of a confession here, I've never played an actual TurboGrafx-16 video game console. Never knew anybody who owned one, never saw the thing around these parts in stores, which is odd. I've played some of the games, yes, but that was all through the evil art of emulation, ooh. And in recent years through the original Nintendo Wii's Virtual Console service, which will go through existence never having had the original NES Contra available to the North American masses, but I digress there. Anyway, if there was any major selling point that attracted me to the original Wii, aside from Mega Man 9, which wound up being the reason that actually convinced me to fork over the cash in 2008, it was the Virtual Console. I liked the Virtual Console because it was convenient, it was straightforward, the games were rather decently priced all things considered, and perhaps most importantly, the Virtual Console ended up being my chance at actually checking out some TurboGrafx-16 games, and even a couple of PC Engine imports the way it was intended to be, on a television screen with no hassle or fiddling with unintelligible options and babbling crap to get that perfect experience. And indeed, I discovered a decent number of great games from the console's library that I've enjoyed tremendously, such as the various space shooters on the console, as well as games like New Adventure Island, Bomberman 94, and of course Dracula X Rondo of Blood. And then there was China Warrior. Oh boy. China Warrior is essentially a scrolling beat-em-up. Your China Warrior, for lack of a better name, essentially moves from left to right, knocking out monks and avoiding other objects being hurled at him. Every so often you'll come across a boss you'll have to defeat. There are 4 stages in China Warrior, each divided into 3 rounds. Each round has a boss for you to fight, and so there are 12 bosses. Unfortunately, my highly impressive mathematical skills in deducing that equation is just about the only fun I ever had with China Warrior, as the game is just one whole steaming pile of meh. It's not good, it's not bad, it's just dull. Now whenever China Warrior comes to mind, there's only a couple points that really stick with me in regards to the game. Number 1, China Warrior boasts huge characters, and at first glance they look visually impressive. Your China Warrior Bruce Lee Naka is a visual beast to behold, and the boss characters that you'll come across along the way are also just as impressive looking. Clearly, if you wanted a game that could showcase the graphical capabilities of the TurboGrafx, China Warrior would serve as a good candidate. Of course, when it comes to watching your China Warrior guy in action, walking animation feels a bit stilted and everyone looks to have anywhere from 3 to 4 animation frames total. But back in the day, this would have been amazing cutting-edge visuals, and on that basis alone, China Warrior shines immensely. Number 2, I like the main theme that plays during gameplay. I think it's a rather catchy tune, and there are times where I couldn't help but hum the tune out of nowhere because it's a really catchy, memorable main theme. China Warrior boasts few musical tracks overall, but they seem to fit the theme of the game and they're fairly decent sounding tunes. Not much to say about the sound effects. They're typical scratchy, tinny sound effects you hear in every old game console, but nothing terrible. It just doesn't stick out. I mean, really, you could have added a voice bite or two to really push it over the edge as far as presentation goes. I mean, why not? It's doable, but yeah, music is kind of catchy. That's a plus right there. Unfortunately, those are the only real positives I have in regards to China Warrior. In terms of presentation, it's not bad. It's a nice little showpiece or tech demo of what the TurboGrafx-16 is capable of. The problem with China Warrior, like most games that exemplify style over substance, is that while it may woo you over with its somewhat impressive presentation in terms of visuals and audio, Eventually you have to sit down and play the game. And this is where China Warrior falters considerably. The gameplay feels tremendously repetitive, even within the standards of the side-scrolling beat-em-up genre, whose entire existence is rooted in repetition and outright monotonous gameplay. But perhaps what makes China Warrior that much more so is the lack of control over your character, who's constantly moving towards the right, only stopping if you're backing off or crouching. This is essentially a side-scroller on rails, and very little control is given to the player. Some folks might see this as a challenge to be conquered, and that's totally fine, but at the same time the limited control kills China Warrior's shine quite a bit to reveal a game that looks pretty for the time, but doesn't play as well as it could have or should have. It's a bit depressing that a game with inferior visuals and on an inferior console can do more in terms of gameplay and control than China Warrior could. The general premise of the game is smacking multicolored monks off screen while dodging or avoiding various projectiles tossed by some unknown force off screen. As per tradition, these things usually come at a fast pace that throws you off guard initially, but is eventually overcome after memorizing the patterns. That's not a flaw in itself, that's something that's true of any game. Everything is based on patterns and memorization. But the really good games that are repetitive by nature usually offset that tedium with some personality and life that makes it fun to play. China Warrior boasts no such personality. This is an example of a game that's all style over substance. China Warrior boasts impressive visuals with its huge characters, no doubt a huge selling point compared to its NES competitor Kung Fu, but the limited gameplay and fun factor hampers the experience somewhat. No doubt back in the day, given the choice between this and Kung Fu, I probably would have stuck with Kung Fu since quite frankly it's a much better game despite looking archaic, and today's no different. Now some folks might like this game, and that's fine, but I'm not one of them. It's an interesting tech demo if nothing else, but as a full-fledged video game, not so much. That, and there are no black-faced China Warriors in Kung Fu. I'm just saying.